Alright guys, so yesterday we started talking about the Indian Removal Act, and the Indian Removal Act, which was started by Jackson, is going to be the cause and the justification for the removal of the Indians, specifically the Cherokee, from the east coast of the United States to Oklahoma. And that's a big thing that you do need to know for tomorrow, is the Trail of Tears is going to remove the Cherokees 800 miles to Oklahoma. And that's going to be justified by the Indian Removal Act. Now, keep in mind that this is really going to cause a lot more problems. It's manifest destiny that's really going to push people westward. Manifest destiny is going to be the belief that they have the right. If they have the right, when they see natives on the land, are they going to be kind to them, or are they going to immediately start with conflict? Conflict, absolutely. Now, when the British showed up to the United States, they were somewhat peaceful. Would we agree? When the first colonists came over, they were somewhat peaceful. They tried to come up with all these terms and stuff like that. Now Americans are out for blood. So one of the big things that you should know about is that Custer, have we heard of Custer? He's going to be defeated and overtaken in the Battle of Little Bighorn. That's going to be the biggest Native American victory over the U.S. Now, please keep in mind, after the Civil War, we have a lot of men in both the North and the South whose only real skill is to fight. They spent 4 years fighting. They were preparing for war before the Civil War broke out. Do you think they went to school and learned any other skills besides fighting? No. So our U.S. military is going to be swelling with people who only know how to fight, and this is going to make it even more violent out west. However, Wounded Knee, the Battle of Wounded Knee, is going to be 1890s. It is going to show U.S. aggression. U.S. soldiers are going to slaughter men, women, and children of the natives of Wounded Knee. Okay, so those are the two major battles. And this just shows you how dangerous it was. So the Mexican-American War. The Mexican-American War is going to happen because of Americans interfering with Mexican politics. So Mexico is going to control Texas, California, and New Mexico. With this whole manifest destiny, is that a problem or is that a good thing? It's a problem. So all of a sudden now you have a bunch of Americans who are pushing into Texas. And they're like, oh my God, America's great. Look at us. We just come here, we just take things. It's so great. You should be American too. So what happens is Texas, who is going to be heavily influenced by these U.S. settlers, are going to declare their independence from Mexico. They're going to declare their independence from Mexico and become the state, what do they call themselves? Texas, what do they call it? Republic of Texas. They're going to call themselves the Republic of Texas. So they don't immediately align with the United States immediately. Okay? So they're going to do that in 1836. They are going to become a U.S. state in 1845. Now, after the election where Trump was the official winner of the election, California said they wanted to secede from the Union. Remember that? Hello? Yeah. California cannot secede from the Union. So if the governor of California wanted to secede from the Union, the U.S. military would invade California and hold on to it because you cannot secede from the Union. That's what started the Civil War. Everyone gets that? Texas, however, can secede from the Union. If Texas decided they wanted to leave, Texas can leave, and the United States military can do nothing about it because it's in the treaty that they signed in 1845. That at any moment Texas wants to leave, they can leave at any moment and set up the Republic of Texas, which is why Texas people love being from Texas. They're the freest state of all because they can choose to leave. Have you ever heard that expression? No? Okay, well, fine. Alright, so conflicts are going to continue to happen. Mexico is going to be forced to secede the territory in the Treaty of Guadalupe, Hidalgo, in exchange for $15 million. So Mexico is not going to be really thrilled that this whole territory decided its independence and the United States gain it. They think it's really fishy. So the United States says, oh my God, Mexico, we'll give you $15 million. And Mexico's like, ah, oh, damn it. Alright. And that's how we get Texas. Okay, so here, now Texas goes all the way up here, not just our wonderful idea of what Texas is. Alright, so major issues the United States is facing is that slavery. Okay, at this point, we have about 12 slave states, 12 free states. Okay, that's an even amount of politicians in the Congress from each state. Can we agree? especially senators, senators and representatives. Obviously, that's still by state population, so that varies, but we're equal. So what happens is cotton is increasing significantly, so more states want to be slave states because at this time, being in cotton is good business. So slavery wants to be added to more states in order to increase its value. Okay, so the issue with the Civil War, and this is what I'd write down heading of Civil War, it is an issue of states' rights versus federal rights. States want to be able to make the decision, am I a slave state or am I a free state? The federal government wants to control how many slave states there are. So it's an issue, is it states' rights or federal rights? Okay, so the U.S. population is swelling with slaves right now. It was 500,000 in 1770. It's now 50 years later, and it's 2 million. So when we say the cotton gin had an impact, it has 1.5 million people are now affected by it. And that's a huge thing. So in order to try to save the Union from people turning on themselves, we come up with the Missouri Compromise in 1820. And that's states' rights versus federal. What that means is if we induct a slave state, we then induct a free state in order to keep the balance between the two. When you get to APW next year, you will hear a lot more about this. So, U.S. Civil War. Abraham Lincoln gets elected president in 1860. Almost immediately, the South succeed, we start the Civil War. Now, it's going to start in 1861 to 1865. It's a 4-year war. Now, it is important that you understand that Abraham Lincoln did not want to repeal slavery and remove it from the South pre-Civil War. His campaign was not about removing slavery. He understood that if you take slaves out of the South, there is no South economics. Okay? He understood that would be catastrophic. In 1863, he penned the Emancipation Proclamation. Okay, and that's in 1863. That is when he decided that freeing the slaves was a big deal. The reason why he decided in 1863 that freeing the slaves was a necessity was to gain motivation. Think about it. If you're just killing each other over the right of states' rights versus federal rights, are you really impassioned by this? Hello? No, absolutely not. Are you impassioned by economics? No. Are you impassioned by morality? What's right and what's wrong? Think about the Nazis. When we think about the Nazis, do we think of them as the epitome of evil? Hello? Absolutely. So when we hear the word Nazi, do you have any sympathy for that person? No, absolutely not. The reason why we feel that way, absolutely Hitler is a terrible person, please understand me. But the propaganda of making World War II good versus evil, America versus Hitler, this whole dynamic of morality, if we don't kill them, who will? That type of issue is what led to the Americans defeating the Nazis. We made it a moral issue. It was our moral responsibility to save the world. Abraham Lincoln does that with the Civil War. In the first 2 years of the Civil War, it's going back and forth. The South and the North are on the same par. It's not until 1963, just a little over 3 years into the war, where he makes it a morality issue. All of a sudden, the Northern people felt that they were fighting for the good, the right, the soul of America, not just for rights. Does that make it more important? Do you think that's more impassioned? On the battlefield, when you're fighting for the morality, the rightness of the cause, you're going to fight harder. Okay, so what we're going to happen, Battle of Gettysburg is going to be the one that turns the tide. It's important to understand that the South is going to kill a lot more people than the North. But the North has many more people. Why does the North have more people? Why does the North have it, Aiden? Industrialization. And when people are coming from Europe, where are they heading? To the north or the south? The north, because it's easy to get factory jobs. It is very, very expensive to open up a plantation, so most people aren't doing that. They're coming here to work in the city. So what happens is we have American recruiters standing at the ports of Ellis Island and say, hey, immigrants, you want land? You want a mule? Come fight for us in the American Civil War. So we would give them a uniform. We'd give them a gun, and we'd send them to the front lines of the American Civil War. Guess what's going to happen on the front lines? They die. So guess what we don't have to pay them? Land or a mule. Pretty genius. We had more people. So the reason why the North wins, you're going to want to write this down. The reason why the North wins, we are industrialized. And I said we because I'm from Boston. McCrae's grandmother calls me the Yankee. I think in like a positive thing. I think she likes me, but she calls me the Yankee. The North has a larger population. The North is industrialized. Okay? Because they're industrialized, we are manufacturing our own guns and our own ammunition. Does the South have factories? No, they don't. So, guess what happens? They're going to start running out of ammunition. Who's going to supply them with ammunition? Who depends on the South? What country depends on the South? Max? No. Africa does not depend on the South. Yes.
England?
England. Why does England depend on the South?
Because they need the cotton for their...
They need the cotton. So England is sending over weapons to the American South. It also makes if the South win, or at least they come to a standstill where the North is going to start their own country in the South, is it going to be easier to reconquer us? Pretty genius. Didn't work out for him, but it's pretty smart. So the North has industrialization. We have more resources. We also have railroads. There's way more railroads up north than there are down south. And the reason is because we have all this raw materials going into our factories, and we also have all the finished products leaving our factories as well. Now, the South are going to kill way more people. They have more military leaders than the North does. When you look at the graduating class of West Point, 1860, the top 27 go to the South, including the #1 graduate out of West Point, which would be Robert E. Lee. Okay? Most, here in the United States, still in 2017, most military men and women come from the South. Very few come from up north. 75% of all military members come from the South. So, the South's going to have more military experience. And that's... Oh, and they're also fighting mostly in their hometowns. So that gives them an advantage. All right, to the boards, real quick. On your whiteboard, what is the day range of the American Civil War? What's the date range? Good. What is it, Micah? There you go. What essentially is the Civil War fighting over? What, at the end of the day, does it come down to? Now. Nah. It's not slavery. Good. Maya, what is it? States' rights versus federal rights. Now, what the states wanted and what the federal government wanted to control was slavery. But if it was about slavery, Lincoln would have started in 1861 freeing all the slaves. Does that make sense? It was about who has more power, the federal government or states' rights. Okay, that's what it's about. On your whiteboard, please tell me, what is the name of the natives who are being pushed out of their East Coast location towards Oklahoma on the Trail of Tears? Good. Vanessa, who is it? Cherokee. On your whiteboard, please tell me, what side won the American Civil War? Good. Who is it? Molly. The North. On your whiteboard, what side had the best generals and military leadership? That's why they kill almost like twice as many people. Lily, who is it? The South. All right, here we go. So Canada is going to want their independence. Canada has a weird relationship with both the English and the French. Now, after American independence and after the French Revolution, do you think that the French and the British really want to have another war of independence? No. So when Canada asks them, they're going to say no. No, Canada, you're not allowed to be independent. And Canada's going to be like, ah, shucks. And they're going to hang out for a while. Okay? Then eventually the British are going to come around and say, you know what, they want their independence. They're not really giving us anything except markets to sell our goods. So if we stay and we allow them to become independent, but we're friendly, then they're still going to buy our stuff because they kind of depend on it. So the British and the French allow Canada to leave. They allow Canada to leave in order to maintain the friendship. And they still have this friendship to this day. And this friendship is going to make Canada dependent on their market. Okay? Now, the British are going to send military to Canada. And this is going to make the Americans very uncomfortable. Because the British say, we'll give you your independence if you allow us to attack America from Canada. And the Canadians are like, all right, here we go. We get independence, you just let us walk through our backyard? Sure. So what's going to happen is the War of 1812. The British invade from Canada, and they push down. They reach all the way into Washington, D.C. They burn down Washington, D.C. Okay? The U.S. are going to get nervous because of Britain's involvement in the region. Now, there's going to be a lot of tension and all that stuff. The British wish to avoid a repeat of the War of Independence. However, they're eventually going to go to blows. All you really need to know is the War of 1812 stems out of Canada. Sounds good? Okay. You don't need any of that. Latin America, here we go. What? You don't need to know the date. You're good. All right. Latin America is what I'd write for your next title. Latin America is going to be a bit chaotic. Okay? So, the Creole are going to be the new ruling class. Who can raise your hand and tell me what is a Creole? Dean. Absolutely. So, are they going to still have some sort of hierarchy? Absolutely. There's still a little bit of a hierarchy. Now, because the Spanish and the Portuguese never gave them any rights or any type of governing experience, are they ready to rule? It's just like deciding that I'm no longer teaching and it's all of your responsibility to organize something. Will it be chaotic? Will it be the most effective way to do things? Like, I take all of my stuff with me and say, peace out. Would this be the best way to do it? No, it's not. Same type of thing. So what we're going to see is that the caudillos, and you do need to know their name, these are going to be regional military leaders. They are going to take over regions of Latin America and control it like a military state. Have you ever heard in Africa they have these bandits who go around with little militaries and conquer territories? Hello, have you heard of that? It happens in Latin America. And that's exactly what they do. They're military dictators who wander around and conquer territories. It starts in Argentina, where we have Juan Manuel de Rosas. He is going to be a terribly brutal man. Okay? So, Mexican reforms. So, we've already had the original Mexican Revolution. That's already happened. It's already kind of failed. So, we have a guy named Benito Juarez, and you do need to know his name. He is known as La Reforma. You should probably write that down. La Reforma is what his nickname is. Now, he comes into power and he tries to limit the amount of military and the amount of power the church has. He is trying to make Mexico a better place. Okay? Now, he is going to stop paying loans. Now, remember, Mexico is going to have about 30-something revolutions when all's said and done. Okay? Do you think Mexico really has that much guns and ammunition? No, they don't. So who do they have to get their guns and ammunition from? You can raise your hand. Where are they coming from? Micah? No, they're not coming from America. America's got their own wars going on, so we gotta fuel our own. Max? They're coming from Europe. So what happens is Mexican leaders are calling up Europe and saying, hey, Europe, so I'm going to be the leader in this new Mexican state, but I need some weapons. Can I have some? And Europe's like, yeah, absolutely, but we're going to charge you for them. And they're like, okay, great. So Europe is now financially invested in these revolutions. So when Benito Juarez shows up, he's like, oh my God, we're paying so much money for weapons of all these wars, we can't pay it and create a government. So he stops paying the Europeans back. Do you think that's going to go well with the Europeans who invested millions? No. So France is going to invade Mexico and being like, damn it, give me my money. And so that's not going to go well. I think we can all agree that he's not going to live long, right? Hello? He's going to die out. Okay, so there's going to be chaos after Benito Juarez. The French are going to have some influence here. But the next Mexican Revolution is from 1910 to 1920. In this revolution, you need to know that Porfirio Diaz is going to be overthrown. Okay? He's going to be overthrown. The outcome, and this is really the only thing you need to know, is that the Mexican Constitution will change because of this and be more and address land redistribution. So you need to know that the Mexican Revolution from 1910 to 1920, Porfirio Diaz is going to be overthrown, and that the only real long-term change is that the Mexican Constitution is going to reflect land redistribution. That's all you need to know about him. Does that work? Okay. Quickly to your boards, my darlings. All right, on your whiteboard, please tell me who has the nickname of La Reforma. Who has the nickname of La Reforma? Who is it, Lily? Benito Juarez. On your whiteboard, please tell me. Benito Juarez is going to stop paying back what European country that is going to come in and invade? Good. Emily? France. On your whiteboard, please tell me what is the name of the gentleman who's going to be overthrown, and then they're going to fix the Constitution to address land. Good. Cheyenne?
Porfirio Diaz.
There you go. On your whiteboard, please tell me the second major Mexican Revolution where Porfirio Diaz is overthrown is from what years? What years? Good. Alexandra?
1910 to 1920.
There you go. What do we call the regional military groups that will go around and terrorize Latin America with their militaristic rule? What is it? Vanessa? Caudillos. Okay. One other thing you need to know. So we're going to go back to industrialization. One of the larger immigrants that are going to be coming to the United States from the 1880s to 1890s is going to be the Italians. The Italians are going to be immigrating to the United States in a major way because of a guy named Giuseppe Gasperi. Giuseppe Gasperi, he is going to be causing this because he's going to be unifying Italy. He's going to be waging war in Italy for about 10 years. And a lot of Italian immigrants are coming to the United States in order to escape it. So Giuseppe Gasperi.
Hey, what did he do?
Unify Italy. He does it with trickery and war. It's right there, man.
Did that cause them to?
Yeah, just because of all the war and stuff that's going to happen. In order to leave, because I mean, in the middle of war, do you think people are eating well? Do you think education, governments are protected, all that stuff, rights are protected? No, absolutely not. It's chaos, so a lot of people are scared, so they leave. And the United States is a big destination. Do we want the Italians when they show up? No, we don't like Italians when they show up. We also don't like the Irish when they show up. We don't like the Germans when they show up during their unification as well. So, all right, economic expansion. We're going to have a continental coast-to-coast railroad. Canada is going to be doing okay. Latin American independence. All right, how much time do I have? We have no idea, do we?
They sent an email.
Okay, like I have time for that crap. Actually, I should. Okay. By the way, I got through everything I had to. So I did cover all that. So that's exciting. That is very exciting. So that makes me feel so much better about everything else. Okay. So the biggest things you need to know that you should know because it'll make next week easier. So economic expansion, we're going to have railroads. Electricity is also going to be happening, and we're also going to have trade unions. Now Canada is going to be benefiting from the United States. Do we want Canada to be weak enough to allow England to invade America via Canada again? No. So what we're going to do, Americans are going to invest in Canada. What we're going to do is we're going to help them build their railroad. We're going to help them pay for a bunch of infrastructure stuff so they don't have to depend on England that much, which means we don't have to be paranoid about our northern border, and that's going to be a huge thing. Adrian, can you hit that arrow button, please? Okay? Latin America is going to have some foreign investment. They're not going to have a ton, but they are going to have some. So that's a kind of a big deal. They're going to have some industrialization. However, government corruption is going to kind of ruin that. The biggest thing about Latin America is they're an export-driven economy, which means they grow things, they have raw materials. How they make money is by sending it to Europe. Is this a good way is this a good type of economy structure? No. It's the industrialized countries that are going to gain power and influence. All right, hit it, Adrian, please. So here in the United States, it's important that you know the United States is the most culturally diverse country in the world. We have different people, and I like when you look at the American team, like at the Olympics. Hello, do you remember the Summer Olympics? Hello. Not League of Nations, the Walk of Nations. You know how they're all walking in. Okay, if you look at like China, they all look Chinese, don't they? If you look at a lot of your African countries, most of those people are all black. If you look at all the Asian countries, they're mostly all Asian. If you look at India, they're all Indian. If you look at the American team, it's everybody. We've got white people, we've got black people, we've got Asian people, we've got Indians, we've got a Muslim girl this year. So that was pretty cool. We're a whole mess of people. We are everyone. And that is one of the things that makes the United States so unique. It also causes us lots of problems. Can we agree? Specifically what's going on now causes a lot of problems. But it is important to know that we are the most diverse. However, are indigenous people really welcome in this culturally diverse world? No, they are not. One of the worst things we've done, and already I've told you about a bunch of terrible things we've done, correct? One of the worst things we do is the Dawes Severity Act of 1887. We take all of these natives and take them from their land where they've been living for thousands of years, and we force them onto reservations. Are these reservations good land with great agriculture, things you can really learn to live off the land? Absolutely not. Most of them, a good amount are in the Dakotas, and a lot of them are in the desert. What about that? Sounds like great farming. By the way, it's called the Deadlands of Dakota. Native children are taken away from their families and enrolled in white-controlled boarding schools. So they're getting stripped of their culture and their identity. It will destroy a lot of the fabrics of these native tribes. So free slaves is another major thing that's happening here. So after the American Civil War, we have slaves, former slaves, who have no way to make money. Now, at the time period after the Civil War, what do we call this time? Reconstruction. Now, before President Lincoln was assassinated, he wanted to reconstruct the South in a very positive way, giving them an opportunity to still make money and kind of change their infrastructure in order to live in a world where slaves weren't their major source of income. After the assassination of Abraham Lincoln, were we nice to the South? No. We made the South pay for a lot of things that they couldn't really afford to, and we penalized them very heavily. Hence why the South, people from the South, call the Civil War the War of Northern Aggression, which I've heard many times from my grandmother-in-law, and hence why she calls me a Yankee. I'm convinced she likes me, though, but she says it with this tone of a little bit of disdain. So I'm not really sure, but I think she does. Like, she's always really nice, you know what I mean? And she always asks about me, so I think she likes me. Anyway, so the northern armies are going to occupy the southern states. And this is going to be called Reconstruction. It's a military reconstruction. Is that how you would treat your brother? If you and your brother were fighting, would you then take a gun and stand next to him in his bedroom to make sure that he didn't do anything wrong again? Or would you say, you promised, I promised, let's just let it be. Well, we stand next to them with a gun and say, you do anything wrong, we're going to kill you. It goes on for about 15 years after the American Civil War. Okay. After the American Civil War, the North gets tired of hanging out down there. The Northerners get some terrible names. Does anyone know one of the nicknames Northerners get? Called carpetbaggers. Yeah, it's because those. Have you ever seen Mary Poppins? You know how she has that massive bag, that hideous bag that has this ugly print on it? Those are called carpetbags. And because all the Northerners were coming down to exploit, the land poor freed slaves are forced to work as sharecroppers. What is a sharecropper? Hayden?
They get like certain plots of land on a field to work on, and then they have to pay a certain amount of that back as well.
Okay, so you have a massive field. Okay, so a former slave owner has a plantation that is this big, and here's his big house. Okay, well, he has no slaves anymore, and both the North and the South needs the South to produce cotton, correct? We need the exporting tax. We need the British buying the stuff if the South's ever going to recover. So we have to come up with a solution, and sharecropping is it. So all of these fields need to be planted. However, we have no slaves. So what we do is we divide it up into all these smaller fields, and we give it to slaves, former slaves. Okay? So they work the land. Say they get $15 a year from that land. They owe $13 in rent. $2 a year is what they're living off of for food and saving up for their own land. Will you ever get out of that cycle? So what are you always going to be? Sharecropping is a legal slave. It won't be banned until the 1930s. Almost 100 years. And there's still people whose grandparents were sharecroppers who are alive today. Obama, I think about 6 or 8 months ago, her parents were sharecroppers who came to the White House. It's the cutest video you've ever seen. She's like 101 years old, and her parents were sharecroppers, and she's in the White House, and she just literally starts giggling as soon as Obama walks in the room because it's the first black president. She literally just starts giggling with glee, and then her, Obama, and Michelle just stand in the room and just giggling and just hugging each other. And she's like, it's the cutest thing in the whole wide world. Whether you're a fan of Obama or not, I mean, that's a pretty damn cool video. Anyway, so all of a sudden, freed slaves are forced into sharecropping. They're never going to get out of this cycle, so you're perpetuating essentially slavery once again. Once the Northerners leave, what type of law starts in the South? Jim Crow starts as soon as the Northerners leave after about 10 or 15 years. And that 10 years immediately after the Civil War, when the Northern military was holding it hostage during Reconstruction, we had about 15 to 30 black senators and representatives. Isn't that cool? And then Jim Crow started. And right now, we only have about 22 here in the House in 2017. Just thoughts. Anyway. All right, Canadian cultural. So we're both seeing themselves as British and the French. Diversity in Latin America. We've got a lot of people. Oh, gaucho cowboys. Gaucho cowboys are farm workers in Latin America. They're seen as heroes. In the 80s, we had gaucho pants. Did you hear about gaucho pants? They're kind of tight on your butt, and then they're like super big, wide legs. Your mom may have a pair. Like, they're huge. No. Bell bottoms are super tight, and then to the bottom, it flares out. Gaucho pants.
Like tassels.
Tassels? Yeah, no. They're kind of like MC Hammer pants, but no, like, rubber band at the bottom. They're just, like, these super wide pants. They kind of look like a full skirt, except there's pants in between, but you gotta, like, pull it apart to see. Those are called gaucho pants. I don't know why you need to know that, but now you do. So we're going to start seeing some issues between rural Mexico and urban Mexico, gaucho cowboys, and that is it for me. Oh my God.